China launches its Long March 2D, placing 41 satellites into orbit.
Authorities say this marks the 476th flight mission of the rocket series. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Philippines praised for combating human trafficking. Families in the Bicol region evacuate ahead of Mayon's possible eruption. Bill Gates meets Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Summit against hunger and malnutrition kicks off in Chile. And Harry Styles serenades the UK with his Love on Tour concert. The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, says that the Philippines was granted the Tier 1 ranking in the Trafficking in Persons or TIP report. The report is released by the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken. According to DMW, the Tier 1 ranking granted to the country improves how other nations perceive the Philippines when it comes to addressing the problems of human trafficking. The agency adds that this marks the 8th consecutive year that the Philippines earned the ranking. Aside from the Philippines, there are 29 other countries that are granted to be at Tier 1.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, along with other government agencies, reinforce child protection in the country. Madeline Villar Moratillo for the report.
Department of Social Welfare and Development Secretary Rex Gatchalian, along with other government agencies, signed the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of Republic Act 11908. Agencies such as the Department of Interior and Local Government, Justice, Health, Education, and Early Childhood Care and Development Council are co-signatories of the statute. The initiative is under Republic Act 11908, or the Parent Effectiveness Service Program Act, that aims to empower parents in knowledge and proficiency in attending their responsibilities in establishing the early childhood development and education of their children. The measure is also part of the government's agenda to end child abuse in the country and towards the development and security of the Filipino youth. Child Protection Network data shows there are roughly 4,075 cases of child abuse recorded in the country from January 1, 2023 to June 4, 2023. The IRR mandates that DSWD will be implementing the development of the Parent Effectiveness Service Program. DSWD is also tasked with providing technical assistance to field offices and to local government units. Meanwhile, a legislator has raised House Bill 8163, or the Philippine Commission on Children Act, to Congress. The proposal aims to establish the Philippine Commission on Children, a special task force that will monitor and secure the welfare of the youth. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Marcos administration vows to solve problems in food security in the country. Eden Santos for the details.
In an ambush interview, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. aims to help the agriculture sector to establish a system to guarantee the food supply in the country is sufficient and affordable.
Ang aking hangarin para sa DA ay pag iniwanan ko ang DA, by that time, we will have systems in place so that we can guarantee the food supply of the Philippines, number one. We can guarantee that the prices are affordable. And number three, that our farmers make a good living.
The President notes that the Department of Agriculture will bear his presence as its secretary until he achieves the change in the agency.
So hanggat matapos natin yun, I suppose you will just have to put up with me as DA secretary.
The President says he will not let his efforts to improve the agency be in vain. President Marcos, being the Agriculture Secretary, has implemented prices on agricultural products, production increases and management on rice and corn, and also in fisheries and livestock. Eden Santos reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. graces the ceremonial turnover of urea fertilizers donated by the People's Republic of China. Ayla Dabo reports.
In a program at the National Food Authority or NFA warehouse, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. formally accepts 20,000 metric tons of urea fertilizer from Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian.
This donation that came from China was a product of our requests from all our friends around the world during the crisis when fertilizer, well, what we are still feeling now, when fertilizer prices went up and the availability was also because of the supply chain problems that we were experiencing with our usual suppliers. And China did not think twice and immediately came up.
The donated fertilizer amounts to 100 million won as part of the grant provided in the undertaking on economic and technical cooperation between the two nations last April 25, 2019. The president thanked the Chinese government for the prosperous agricultural donation.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and to the People's Republic of China for the donation.
We are surrounded by bags and bags of the 20,000 metric tons of urea, which has been donated to us by the Chinese government and is now being formally accepted by the Philippines. So in behalf of the Filipino people, let me extend our deepest gratitude and appreciation to the Chinese government and its people for this donation, a solid gesture of friendship and goodwill that is in keeping with our long and storied history of trade and cultural exchange.
The fertilizers will be sent off to regional delivery points across the country for distribution to farmers under a voucher system. Urea is widely used in the agriculture sector both as a fertilizer and animal feed additive. The president reaffirms the strong bilateral ties between China and the Philippines as both nations advance with their mutual interest in development.
So these generous acts symbolize the value of the relationship between our two countries. We must continue to nurture, we must continue to care for that through acts of mutual assistance and of constant and amicable dialogue. I assure the Chinese government that the Philippines will always work for the strengthening of our ties and the advancement of our mutual interests. And they are many. As we walk to the next half century of our diplomatic ties, let this day be a celebration for many things for us. The diligence and hard work of our farmers, our realizable goal of food self-sufficiency, and the lasting beneficial impact of the long-standing friendly ties between our two nations.
Ayla Dabo reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. launched an ambitious 5-year plan to increase the country's export target to $240 billion by 2028. He made his announcement during the unveiling of the 2023-2028 Philippine Export Development Plan, or PEDP 2023-2028, at the Shangri-La at the Fort Hotel in Taguig City on Thursday. PEDP 2023-2028 aims to accelerate the country's current exports goal of $126.8 billion, growing to $143.4 billion in 2024 and $163.6 billion in 2025. The plan seeks to facilitate export growth acceleration to $186.7 billion in 2026, $212.1 billion in 2027, reaching its final goal of $240.5 billion by 2028. Philippine Exporters Confederation Incorporated President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. said PEDP 2023-2028 has different strategic support for each of the four priority industry clusters. Priority industry clusters being industrial, manufacturing and transportation, technology, media and telecommunications, and health and life sciences, and modern basic needs and resilient economy. The plan also shows that there were 8 sectors that could account for 88.5% or $213 billion of total export revenue target for the year 2028. These sectors are electronics, information technology and business process management, minerals, agriculture and agri-based exports, transport products, wearables, fashion accessories and travel foods, chemicals, and home furnishings. According to President Marcos Jr., the Philippines will soon sign free trade agreements with South Korea, the European Union, and the United States. He cited that the Philippines should open markets to be able to export to and import from the country. Marcos Jr. stressed that we have to have the liberty of restructuring some elements that are within the law, that are within the rules, so that we can compete on an even basis.
Private sector companies support Health Secretary Ted Herbosa in his proposal to hire unlicensed nursing graduates to work in public hospitals. The secretary says that some companies will provide scholarships for nursing graduates who failed or have yet to take the licensure examinations. Herbosa notes that tuition for review centers cost lies around 25,000 pesos, a price that many nursing graduates cannot afford. He adds that if the plan pushes through, nurses are required to render a return of service. The Department of Health recently reported that there were 4,500 vacant plantilla position nurses at 72 hospitals nationwide.
Philippine Ambassador to Washington, Jose Manuel Romualdez, said the United States government should shoulder the costs if the Philippines agree to house Afghan refugees. In an interview on Thursday, Ambassador Romualdez said the U.S. government will pay for everything, including food and lodging of the Afghan refugees. His statement comes after several senators expressed their concerns regarding the U.S.'s request to bring Afghans formerly employed by the U.S. government in fighting the Taliban into the country. Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs Chairperson Amy Marcos called for a Senate inquiry, saying the request lacks transparency. Through Senate Resolution number 651, Senator Marcos questioned the decision to house Afghan refugees, citing threats to national security and espionage. During the probe, Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalos said U.S. President Joe Biden briefly raised their government's request with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. during their meeting in Washington last May. Manalos said the DFA received a concept note from the U.S. government last October 2022, which indicated the request. The note requested that the Philippine government to allow us or U.S. employed Afghans and their qualified dependents to temporarily stay in the country while the U.S. Embassy in Manila will process their special immigration visa to enter the U.S. Senate's press release cited the Philippine Immigration Act of 1940, states that the admission of refugees for religious, political, or racial reasons should serve a humanitarian purpose and not be opposed to the public interest. Ambassador Romualdez responded that despite their relations, Senator Amy is doing her job to make sure that this will not affect our national security.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council says the restiveness of Mayon volcano has affected nearly 10,000 families. Vin Pascua reports.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRMC, says the ongoing unrest of Mayon volcano has affected some 9,947 families in Bicol region. The number is equivalent to 38,391 residents from 26 barangays in Region 5. NDRMC says of this figure, 5,125 families or 18,584 individuals are in 27 evacuation centers. Other families are sheltered outside or staying with relatives and friends. The numbers are still subject to change as validations are ongoing. NDRMC says the assistance extended to Region 5 is now more than 57 million pesos. Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology or PHIVOLCS said they recorded the largest pyroclastic density current or PDC on Thursday night. Official says the PDC happened at 11:18 p.m. on Thursday and is the largest seen since June 8. Geologists define PDC as the most hazardous event to local areas during explosive volcanic eruptions. PDCs are hot, ground-hugging flows of ash and debris that can travel at speeds of hundreds of meters per second. PDCs can reach tens to hundreds of kilometers from the source of the volcano. Bayon's PDC caused 307 rockfall events and 4 volcanic earthquakes on Thursday night. Both are slightly higher than the recorded figures from Wednesday to Thursday, where 306 rockfall events and 2 volcanic tremors occurred. PHIVOLCS also logged stem-laden plumes that rose 750 meters and averaged sulfur dioxide emission of 826 tons. Meanwhile, the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, has imposed a price freeze on basic necessities and prime commodities in Albay. Officials directed business establishments to comply with the freeze order or face necessary penalties. DTI wants to ensure the affected families in Albay will have access to affordable commodities, particularly during disasters like the unrest of Mayon volcano. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates visits President Xi Jinping in China. UK report finds former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has lied over Partygate scandal. And leaders from around the globe gather for the second parliamentary summit against hunger and malnutrition. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Welcome to Real Good Resort! I hate to say it, hindi kayo ang pakay ko dito ngayon. Ay, eto na ang pakay ko! Ang latest mula sa kanilang tatlo dito sa Corina Interviews. Sa totoong buhay, hindi ka pala ma-exercise sa tao pero fitness instructor ang role mo.
Yes.
Aminin na natin, ikaw talaga ang pinaka-may-it.
Siguro
As in,
nga.
it bulaga. Ikaw daw taga-harap sa mga naniningil ng utang.
Pag syempre hindi na kaya ng mom ko, nagbe-breakdown na rin siya. Na lang yung haharap. Ako yung makikiusap.
Halika mag-swimming na tayo at abangan ang swimsuit edition ni Meg.
Oh my God!
Sorry, hindi tayo magsasabi ng ending. Hindi.
Syempre hindi.
Panoorin nila.
Abangan.
Nila. Abangan daw ang season 3.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net25.
Ikaw, irereklamo ko. Pinarank niya ako, binuhusan ako ng tubig.
Kampikon mo naman.
Aba, yung binuhus mo sa akin tubig na JJ Lo, ayan oh. Ano mo naman?
Hoy! Ano ba? Nasa inyo yung Diyos ko! Hoy! It's a prank! Hindi mo alam na may nag-video sa'yo? Sir Kapian, alam niyo lahat na may nag-video! Hoy!
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Thousands were left with no power as severe cyclone Bipak Joy whipped India and Pakistan. The cyclone lashed the Kutch Saurashtra region and damaged the state power utility. Indian authorities said 5,120 electricity poles were destroyed, rendering more than 4,000 villages without power. By Friday noon, the power supply was immediately restored in 3,580 villages. The government also deployed 6 teams for relief and rescue operations in Kutch district. India's National Disaster Response Force said the cyclone claimed at least 5 lives in their country. Cyclone Biparjoy spared Pakistan from destruction. Pakistan Meteorological Department announced Biparjoy has weakened into a severe cyclonic storm when it entered their country. But Climate Change Minister Sherry Rehman said Pakistan was prepared for the onslaught of Biparjoy. The ministry evacuated more than 60,000 people from 3 vulnerable areas. Rehman said they will now discuss how to send the evacuees back to their homes.
South Korea sued North Korea for $35 million in compensation for a liaison office that Pyongyang allegedly blew up in 2020. Seoul said Pyongyang's demolition was a violent and illegal act that undermined trust and infringed on the property rights of the South and its people. North Korea allegedly bombed the joint liaison office after complaining about the defectors' campaign of floating propaganda leaflets. The suit was lodged before the Seoul Central District Court. Local reports said it was the first complaint South Korea has ever filed against North Korea. The South Korean Unification Ministry explained the case had to be filed before June 16 to comply with a 3-year statute of limitations under South Korean law.
China rebuffs claims that its vessels made incursions into Palau's territorial waters. Palau earlier requested more U.S. military patrols and claimed there was a threat from Beijing. But Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin says China's vessels follow international law. He insists their vessels were taking shelter from the wind at relevant waters. He maintains their vessels did not conduct any maritime exploration or survey activities.
Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist Bill Gates met President Xi Jinping in Beijing. Gates is among a number of Western business leaders to visit China since the country ended strict COVID controls for almost 3 years. This visit marks Gates' first time to the country in 4 years. This one was special as it included a rare sit-down between the Chinese head of state and a foreign philanthropist. It follows a Thursday announcement by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that it would give $50 million to support China against malaria and tuberculosis. The foundation announced it would renew its collaboration with the Global Health Drug Discovery Institute, a Beijing-based group set up by Gates. The meeting comes ahead of an expected visit to China by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Sunday.
The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency describes the situation at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as serious. But Rafael Grossi says the plant is being stabilized. Grossi inspected the plant Thursday to assess safety risks. There are fears the collapse of the Kakhovka Dam could affect the plant's safety. Water from the dam's reservoir is used to cool the reactors and spent fuel to prevent a meltdown, even though the plant is not operating right now. That reservoir is dry, and officials say they are relying on underground wells to replenish the cooling pond. Grossi says for now there is sufficient water in the pond. But he says he wants the world to be aware of the danger that there could be a major accident. This is Grossi's 3rd trip to the plant since it fell to Russian forces.
Denmark, the Netherlands, together with the United States and United Kingdom, declare their intention to supply Ukraine with weapons. In a joint statement, the 4 nations said short and medium-range air defense missiles and related systems will be delivered to Kyiv soon. Meanwhile, negotiations reports claimed Japan is set to give shells to U.S. before they are sent to Ukraine. Legal experts said Japanese law prohibits the supply of weapons abroad, but this restriction may be avoided by using a 2016 agreement that allows the U.S. and Japan to trade munitions as part of their long-standing security alliance. Local reports said the Japanese Ministry of Defense has no final decision on the weapon deliveries.
A committee of UK lawmakers concluded that former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson deliberately lied to Parliament about breaking COVID lockdown rules. The House of Commons Privileges Committee said Johnson was also complicit in a campaign to intimidate those investigating his conduct during the COVID pandemic. The committee's 30,000-page report stated Johnson's actions were a flagrant violation of the country's COVID protocols. The lawmakers recommended that if Johnson was still to be retained Member of Parliament, he should be suspended for at least 90 days. The committee planned to debate possible sanctions on Monday. Meanwhile, Johnson called the report a lie and a charade. He also said the report was an example of political assassination.
A federal grand jury has indicted a former U.S. Air National Guardsman over leaking top-secret military intelligence records online. The Boston federal grand jury charged Jack Douglas Teixeira with 6 counts of willful retention and transmission of classified information relating to national defense. The U.S. Department of Justice said each charge provides for a sentence of up to 10 years in prison, up to 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $250,000. Teixeira was arrested in April over sharing highly classified military documents about the war in Ukraine on the popular social media website Discord.
This marks the last stop of Iran's president in his Latin American tour, which took him to visit Iran's allies in the region, Venezuela and Nicaragua. Speaking in a trade forum with several businessmen, Raisi said that their countries would pursue partnerships in biotechnology, mining, electricity generation, and other areas. Unlike his previous stops in Nicaragua and Venezuela, Raisi refrained from making harsh comments in public against Washington or the economic sanctions imposed on his country and its allies. President Miguel Diaz-Canel said both nations had to face the tenacious resistance and blockades of U.S. imperialism and its allies. Apart from sanctions, the United States also has Cuba and Iran on its list of state sponsors or terrorism. Raisi and Diaz-Canel toured biotechnology production plants in the western part of the capital, then headed to a closed-door reception at Cuba's Palace of the Revolution. The leaders also signed several agreements on customs, justice, telecommunications, and diplomatic action.
President Vladimir Putin and Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune pledged to strengthen their bilateral partnership. Tebboun's 3-day state visit comes as Moscow's offensive in Ukraine stretches into a second year. From their ruptured ties with the Western region, Putin is now seeking to cement his relationship with countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The two leaders signed a declaration on deep strategic partnership, among other agreements.
Вас видеть, отношения с Алжиром имеют для нашей страны особое значение и носят стратегический характер. Мы сейчас вот только, когда передвигались в этот зал с господином президентом, вспоминали о том, что отношения между Алжиром и Россией начали складываться еще в середине 50-х годов. Развивались уже тогда, можно сказать, что они тогда уже носили стратегический характер, без всякого преувеличения.
Putin extended an invitation for Algeria to attend Russia's summit in the city of St. Petersburg.
Алжир входит в тройку ведущих торговых партнеров России на африканском континенте. Вчера, насколько мне известно, вы должны были посетить российско-алжирский бизнес-форум. Надеюсь, что интерес с обеих сторон к мероприятиям подобного рода будет только возрастать. Ну, забегая вперед, отмечу, мы будем рады вас видеть в Петербурге в конце июля на втором саммите Россия-Африка.
Shortly after Russian President Vladimir Putin meets with United Arab Emirates leader Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in St. Petersburg with plans to discuss cooperation between the two countries, Kremlin aides state that Putin meets with the UAE president quite often. The leaders have established trusting, constructive relations.
European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen visited Mexico to meet with President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. This was the first visit of the head of the European Commission to Mexico in 11 years, and it aimed to relaunch a bilateral relationship and the strategic partnership between Mexico and the European Union. They held a dialogue in which they were able to identify several joint priorities and challenges that our world has been facing. Mexico is the European Union's second largest trading partner in Latin America and the Caribbean. And inversely, the European Union is Mexico's third largest trading partner and the second largest investor in the country. They agreed to pursue policies that promote sustainable, resilient, and inclusive economic growth and development that favor social justice on both sides of the Atlantic. Both presidents identified Mexico as a strategic energy, industrial, and logistical hub to supply the North American and European markets. They agreed on the important global role that this relationship of equals has in meeting the challenges of our time, including persistent inequalities, climate change, and unprecedented global security threats.
The World Health Organization and the United Nations Children's Fund are sounding the alarm and calling on countries to improve the condition of healthcare facilities. This as a new report reveals that 8 million people die annually from poor quality healthcare. Rosel Feria tells us more.
According to a new report by WHO and UNICEF, frontline health facilities are faltering without water, sanitation, hygiene and electricity or wash services. 8 million people die every year in 137 low to middle income countries from inferior health care. With that, $6 trillion in economic losses are wasted due to poor health and premature deaths. WHO and UNICEF call on countries to improve their healthcare facilities. This by addressing financial obstacles, integrating wash, waste and electricity services into health planning, empowering the health workforce, and strengthening accountability. Effective interventions to improve healthcare include increasing availability of hand hygiene and drinking water stations, regular cleaning, functioning toilets, and regular on-site water supply. Representatives from over 30 countries are meeting at a global summit on WASH in Amman, Jordan, to agree on key recommendations and solutions. The event is co-hosted by WHO and UNICEF. In Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Delegates from around the world have come together at the second Global Parliamentary Summit Against Hunger and Malnutrition in Valparaiso, Chile. The inaugural session was led by the President of Chile, Gabriel Boric, the FAO Regional Representative for Latin America.
En América Latina y el Caribe, el hambre y la inseguridad alimentaria también tuvieron importante alza. En estos 2 años referidos, entre el 2019 y el 2021, la cantidad de personas que sufren hambre pasó de 43 millones a 56 millones. Y la inseguridad alimentaria aumentó en la región en casi 100 millones de personas.
Various delegates shared their experiences of implementing legislation on matters relating to food security and nutrition. Delegate from Uruguay, Mario Lubetkin, read a message sent by the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, or FAO, Ku Dong-yu, who was unable to travel to the summit.
A ver, la seguridad alimentaria no pasa por una medida, ni pasa por un actor. La seguridad alimentaria tiene responsabilidades los gobiernos en primer lugar. Y los gobiernos tienen responsabilidad en primer lugar por el manejo del presupuesto de los estados. Depende de qué presupuesto hagas, ahí tienes tu política social y económica. No basta la...
The FAO Director General recognized the importance of parliamentary work in designing laws and influencing governments to improve production, nutrition, the environment, and people's quality of life. The body called for evaluating new forms of cooperation and identifying innovative solutions to address the challenges that hunger and food insecurity now pose to the entire world.
Más de 828 millones de personas, 828 millones de personas, seres de carne y hueso, con historia, con recuerdos, con vida, con futuro, padecen hambre en el mundo. Y esta situación, además, ha empeorado dramáticamente desde que el COVID hizo su entrada en el escenario global y paralelo.
June 20 is World Refugee Day. In observance, the United Nations is calling on the world to match the courage of refugees with opportunities they need. Jeff Sanidad tells us more.
In a message for World Refugee Day, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres says refugees represent the very best of the human spirit. Guterres says they need and deserve support and solidarity, not closed borders and pushbacks. At present, there are 103 million people worldwide who are forcibly displaced due to conflict, persecution, hunger, and climate chaos. The United Nations chief says these are not numbers on a page. These are individual women, children, and men making difficult journeys, often facing violence, exploitation, discrimination, and abuse. Guterres calls for a greater international support for host countries. He urges access to quality education, decent work, healthcare, housing, and social protection. He also calls for much stronger political will to make peace so refugees can return safely to their homes. Here in the United States, an average of 340,000 refugees arrive per year, with Nebraska state topping the list of arrivals per capita. This year's theme for World Refugee Day is Hope Away from Home. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Lebanese depositors vandalize banks in Beirut. Authorities arrest 9 Egyptians for human smuggling in Greece. And in Canada, a multi-car collision leaves 15 dead. Mata ng Agila International will be back after this short break. Don't go away.
Businesses are increasingly accepting the importance of balancing profit with people and the planet. The cement manufacturing industry has traditionally been associated with high carbon emissions and environmental damage. But now, some companies are taking a different approach, prioritizing people and planet, implementing sustainable practices to reduce their impact on the environment and contributing to society. In today's episode, we will speak with Sam Manloso Jr., head of Geocycle, a unit of Wholesome Philippines, to know more about the crucial role they play in promoting sustainable development in our country.
It's really important for us to transform old ways of doing business, make it sustainable, make it a way to better people, planet, and profit.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Kung nagse-search kayo online tungkol sa mga karamdaman, ay familiar po sa inyo ang ating panauhin ngayong gabi. Walang iba kung hindi si Doc Willie Ong.
Kung may 44 years na ang Itbulaga, ako 30 years na rin sa ganito. Tumutulong ng libre.
Kamusta kayo, Doc?
I had major depression.
Totoo ba nakaka-arthritis ang pagkain ng...
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor, kung may bayad, di baliwala din.
Paano nating mapapangalagaan ang kalusugan ni Juan? Mag-reality check tayo.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's dance together. Sunday 25.
In Lebanon, frustrated depositors burned tires and vandalized branches of several banks in the Sin El Fil area. The country has been entangled since 2019 in an economic crisis dubbed by the World Bank as one of the worst in modern history. Crisan Fragata reports.
Banks in the Sin El Fil area have been vandalized by angry account holders as the currency's market value has severely depreciated against the dollar. According to the latest rate on the black market, $1 is exchanged for almost 93,000 Lebanese pounds. One depositor says he has $2 million in the bank, and with his wife sick with cancer, he needs money to pay for treatment. He says, however, that the bank wants to take out $2,400 from his account, but will only give him 20 million Lebanese pounds in return. This is equivalent to only $200. Another says the vandalism is a reaction to those who wronged them and stole their life savings. Some of these depositors say they have worked 30 to 40 years so that when they are older, they can live in dignity. Looking at the country's economic situation, that outlook is far from reality. Chris Anfragada for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Paris, lawyers and association leaders are calling for children who accuse a parent of sexual violence to be given more credibility by the courts. Jessica Bautista has the details.
Lawyers and association leaders plead that children who accuse a parent of sexual violence should benefit from a presumption of credibility. This because for these children, justice too often calls into question their word and that of their mothers. Lawyer and spokesperson for the Collective for Children, Pascal Kisay, accuses the judicial system as seriously dysfunctional. Kisay says there are 160,000 child victims of sexual violence a year. But for justice, apparently discouraged is not incest but manipulative mothers. He says, oftentimes when mothers go to court saying their children report sexual violence committed by their father, many of the mothers are suspected of having manipulated the kids. Manipulation in the context of conflictual separation. This can lead to the mothers losing the custody battle and then being sentenced for non-presentation of children if they try to oppose it. Another lawyer, Pauline Ronier, says aggressors defend themselves by saying the children are lying and that it was their mother who coached the kids to tell lies. She says, the regrettable thing is that this theory of defense of the aggressor finds an echo so easily in institutions. Jessica Bautista for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Authorities have arrested 9 Egyptians suspected of being human smugglers following the migrant boat disaster off the coast of Greece. Among those detained is the captain of that overloaded and dilapidated vessel. Emmy Kapili-Taroha has the details.
The Greek news agency ANA reports police made the arrest in the Peloponnese port of Kalamata. The ill-fated fishing boat had left Libya en route to Italy when it capsized and sank Tuesday in the Ionian Sea. A search continued Thursday for survivors. 2 patrol boats, a helicopter, and 6 other ships scoured the waters, which are some of the deepest in the Mediterranean. But hope is fading that rescuers will find many more people alive. So far, 104 people have been plucked from the sea. They're being housed at this warehouse in Kalamata, Greece. The official death toll stands at 78, but officials fear it could go much higher, perhaps into the hundreds. Unconfirmed reports say that up to 750 people had been aboard that boat. The Greek Coast Guard says the vessel had been spotted on Tuesday, but the passengers refused any help. It added no one on board wore life jackets. A Coast Guard spokesman says the boat's engine quit about 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday night and the vessel capsized. It sank within 10 to 15 minutes. Emmy Kapili-Taroha for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Bosnian police have arrested a 13-year-old boy following a shooting at an elementary school in the northeastern city of Lukavac. The teacher is recovering in the hospital from multiple gunshots to the neck. No one else suffered injuries. Police arrested the suspect at the scene. Officials say the suspect was a former student at the school. The child was recently transferred out due to behavioral problems. The wounded teacher also served as the school's assistant principal. Authorities have declined to disclose the motive of the shooting.
A collision between a transport truck and a bus carrying a group of seniors in Western Canada has claimed the lives of 15 people and left another 10 injured. The accident happened Thursday near Carberry in southwestern Manitoba as the bus crossed a major highway. More on that story from Thomas Eyelikeness.
The seniors had planned a day trip to Carberry. They had come from a nearby town for the outing. Shortly before the lunch hour, tragedy struck. As their bus crossed the Trans-Canada Highway, it collided with a semi-trailer truck. Police say 15 people died at the scene. 4 air ambulances along with ground ambulances took at least 10 others to hospital. They sustained a variety of injuries. RCMP Superintendent Rob Lawson says the drivers of both vehicles survived the accident. They're in hospital, but what he isn't saying is who had the right-of-way. He says investigators will determine that, and that investigation has been taken over by Major Crimes. Lawson says if there's been any wrongdoing, charges will be laid. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered his condolences upon hearing the news, saying he cannot imagine the pain those affected are feeling. As the day ended, a parade of funeral vehicles began arriving at the accident site to remove the remains of the victims. Thomas Eyelikeness from Atanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Environmentalists fear an airport under construction in Albania will wipe out a sensitive bird habitat. The airport is being built near Vlora to cash in on the Balkan nation's tourist boom. Jennifer Polintan has more details.
This shallow lagoon is home to hundreds of migratory birds, such as flamingos and Dalmatian pelicans. The area, known as the Narda Lagoon, received national park status this past March. Millions of birds pass through this region annually as they migrate between Europe and Africa. Critics of the airport say it will have a direct impact on the habitat. They say migratory flyways will be disrupted by planes and nesting areas could be irreparably damaged. The Albanian government disputes these fears, saying the airport won't infringe upon protected areas. It says the project will be a much-needed boost to tourism. Environmentalists fear the increased tourism will set off a tidal wave of construction. Jennifer Polintan for Bantadang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, music publishers sue Twitter over copyright infringement. China launches record-setting 41 satellites. And Harry Styles brings back his Love on Tour concert in London. Catch more news in business, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Ano to, networking?
Monday, first screening.
Libre ang sinihan para sa mga seniors kada Lunes.
Ganda! Hindi ikaw, si Lydia.
Oo naman.
Ano ba manligaw ngayon, ha?
Text mo na.
Nakalimutan ko ang pangalan mo. Pwede ba kitang tawagin akin? Flowers for you.
Kapag tinanggap ko ba ang bulaklak na yan, aalis ka na.
Ang sakit ng katawan ko. Araw-araw ba naman akong nahuhulog sa'yo?
Parang kakaiba ata ang pormahan nyo ngayon, Mama.
Ano ba si Bobby? Ano yan?
Mayang Bobby mo, sugarol.
Gusto mong ipamukha sa akin na hindi ako karapat-dapat na magkaroon ng kasama sa buhay.
Ano? Pwede ka ba?
Oo.
Yes! Umiikot ang paningin ko.
Oo.
Dahan-dahan lang.
Naku, Ma'am, may makakasabay ka na mag-jogging.
Gusto niyo bang itanim ko kayo sa paso?
May malaking pagbabagong magaganap sa inyong umaga. Abangan.
Manila, this is Bruno Mars. I'll be performing at the Philippine Arena June 24th and June 25th. Go get your tickets at livenation.ph. I'll see y'all soon.
Twitter faces a $250 million federal lawsuit in Nashville. The National Music Publishers Association, or NMPA, files the legal action against Twitter over its massive copyright infringements. The coalition includes Universal Music Publishing Group, Warner Chappell Music, and Sony Music Publishing. About 17 music publishers that represent artists like Drake, Taylor Swift, and Adele raised the lawsuit to the federal court. The legal complaint is for the damages of identified infringements related to almost 1,700 musical works. A new patch has been developed to alert the user's hydration levels. Mark Tapil tells us more.
A biosensor that looks after an individual level of hydration during a physical activity is out in the market and uses sweat to analyze real-time hydration data. During a physical activity, especially high-impact exercises and trainings, even mild dehydration can affect your performance. The Nix Hydration Biosensor is a pod that works like a patch and is a sophisticated tool to alert you to drink. While the tech and health markets already have an array of gadgets that reminds you to drink, this biosensor is clearly designed for endurance athletes. It analyzes sweat levels and notifies the user through a watch or a smartphone. It tells you when to drink and even what you should drink to keep your body at the peak of hydration. Priced at $129, it's not that cheap, considering it only comes with single-use patches with refills costing you $24 every time. But compared to the regular hydration widgets that you install on your smartphone, this biosensor delivers personalized data for your unique hydration needs. Mark Tapel, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
China launches its Long March 2D that is set to place 41 satellites into orbit. The launch marks a domestic record for the most satellites lifted in one go. The Chinese spacecraft blasted off at Taiwan Satellite Launch Center. This will be the 476th flight mission of the Long March rocket series. Authorities say these satellites are used for commercial remote sensing services.
In sports news, thousands celebrate NBA champion Denver Nuggets at parade, and French basketball star Victor Wembanyama says goodbye to France before joining the NBA. Bernadette Manuel has the score.
Nuggets fans crowded the streets of Denver as the NBA champions, Denver Nuggets, celebrated their first league championship with a victory parade. Players waved to supporters in the middle of all the pomp and circumstance. NBA Finals most valuable player Nikola Jokic and teammate Jamal Murray rode on a fire truck bucket as the crowd cheered block after block. Nuggets coach Michael Malone said that seeing all the fans screaming as they brought the title home was the crowning moment of the team's achievement. He thanked the Nuggets nation and appreciated all their patience after 47 years of fighting. Malone also stressed his feeling that the Nuggets had more title runs left in them and that they are not yet done. Now we move over to France. French basketball star Victor Wembanyama bids goodbye to France before joining the NBA. This after his team, Boulogne-Levallois Metropolitan 4-22, had lost against Monaco in the finals of the French League, where he still managed to record 22 points, 7 boards, and 4 blocks in the last game. Despite the loss, Wemby is now focused on his NBA journey as he is widely expected to be drafted number 1 overall.
Je me disais pas que c'était le dernier parce que je voulais gagner. Pendant le match, je me disais pas ça, mais à la fin, c'était... franchement, c'était spécial. Mais bon, comme je sais qu'avec l'équipe de France, j'en jouerai encore des matchs en France et puis surtout l'année prochaine, c'est rassurant. Ce n'est qu'un au revoir.
Although Wembanyama's time in the French league is over for now as he has his sights set on the NBA, he still intends to join his home country's national team in 2024 when Paris hosts the Olympics.
Clairement, ce moment où mon nom va être prononcé par Adam Silver, c'est quelque chose que j'ai imaginé déjà et dont j'ai rêvé en fait depuis longtemps. Et ça va être un mélange d'émotions incroyable, je le sais. Et moi, j'ai pas l'habitude de stresser avant les matchs ou avant les grands événements, mais c'est sûr que pour ce moment de bascule dans ma vie, c'est sûr que j'aurais sûrement la boule au ventre ou voilà quoi. Et après, je sais pas exactement comment je me sentirais, mais c'est sûr que ce sera un moment extrêmement spécial.
Bernadette Manuel reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Now that it's Friday again, why not catch a documentary this weekend? Stephanie Mayo has her pick.
The COVID-19 global lockdown may be over and has become part of our collective and nightmarish past. But this 2021 documentary gives the viewer a never-before-seen view of the Earth when, during that terrifying chapter in history, humanity came to a standstill. Narrated by David Attenborough, The Year Earth Changed is a unique, thought-provoking nature documentary which follows scientists in a span of 12 months in 2021, capturing jaw-dropping footage from 5 continents during the COVID-19 hard lockdown. The mesmerizing, breathtaking clips show how the Earth without human interaction was able to breathe again, that in a matter of days, flora and fauna thrived, pollution significantly dropped, and waters cleared. Stream it on Apple TV+. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kata girls are ready to make your mornings better. This coming June 26th, the Net25 program Kada Umaga can be watched every 10 a.m. in its new time slot. Come and join Pia Guanyo Mago, Diana Menezes, and Emma Tiglao in facing your mornings with joy, information, and stories filled with love for 2 hours. Catch their Q&A segment, Alam na Dish, Kita Mo Yun, At Your Service, Hobby Biz, Hacks Naman, A Day in a Life, Day Out, There You Go, A Pair Tayo, Techie Yarn, I Agree, Yayamanin, and Sports in Action. Also watch Mrs. Ko 2023, Ano Ba Topic, Star Artists, Galaw Galaw, Talent Ko, and David's Makeover. Kada Umaga can be watched on Net25 online platforms, Facebook, and YouTube from Mondays to Fridays. Harry Styles brings back his Love on Tour concert in London. Fans and celebrities are delighted to see Styles performing more than 15 songs. From London, England, Erica Celestino reports.
English singer and songwriter Harry Styles is on his ongoing second concert tour, Love on Tour 2023. The tour started in September 2021 in the United States of America and is set to finish in July 2023 in Italy. This tour is in support of his studio albums Fine Line and Harry's House. After his concerts in Wembley last year in June, he is back in London for his 4-night concerts at the Wembley Stadium.
Yes, it's my first time watching Harry Styles, so I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to singing my favorite songs.
I'm Tosin.
I'm Catherine. Are you excited for Harry Styles' concert?
Very much.
Excited.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
We're ready.
Honestly, ready to go.
We've been counting down for a very long time.
We really have.
So.
We bought these tickets so long ago.
Yeah.
We're so ready to go.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to this concert?
Oh, just the energy, I think.
Energy, like seeing him, like in the flesh, like so excited.
Last time I saw him was One Direction, so it's been a few years ago.
It's been a few years.
Yeah.
Styles sang various songs from his albums, which included Golden, Matilda, Satellite, Love of My Life, As It Was, accompanied by the fans who were not only entertained by his performance, but also by the banters of the English singer. Everyone enjoyed the show as the songs were performed, bringing joy to the fans attending. There are various fans who traveled far and wide to attend the concerts in London, some even attending multiple dates in various countries around the world.
Reporting from London, this is Erica Celestino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
And just like that, it's already Friday.
It's Friday.
And to cap off the week, here's a quote from award-winning music producer and Dr. Andre Young. When I was close to defeat, I rose to my feet. My life is like a soundtrack I wrote to the beat.
I love the rhyme game.
Bet you were grooving when I wasn't
I was
looking.
dancing while you were saying that.
That's right.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores, always wishing all of you a great, great, great weekend. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.